Hi everyone, again, my name is Mara Pometti. I'm lead AI strategist with IBM Design, and I'm really thrilled to be with you today at this wonderful event celebrating women in tech and in general technology. I really can't wait to share with you the story of my personal journey today as a woman in STEM and actually as a humanist in STEM, as I like to define myself. In fact, I think that there couldn't be better time than this that we are living in to come together to envision new ways to make our future better with technology. And especially today, I'm going to talk to you about artificial intelligence and how I try, with my experience in both the humanities and the STEM, to humanize AI. So today I'm bearing with me some good news and some bad news for everyone who aims at building new ways to use data and AI to enhance people's life. And I'm gonna start getting the bad news out first. Let's always put the bad stuff up front. So here it is. Every media and publication that talks about AI keeps reminding us how dangerous AI is. AI is eroding trust. It interferes with our ability to make fair decisions. It destroys our confidence in the institutions that should judge us equally. It creates disinformation, insinuating the doubt in the content that we consume, and it discriminates against underrepresented minorities. We have let automated systems spreading across products and services without considering deeply the impact that they could have had on people. Now, the good news, because there is a good news. And the good news relies actually on the willingness of each one of us working in data and AI to humanize AI, meaning centering the design and implementation of AI on humans. Humans must become the measure of AI systems. You know, I think that the problem is not to have AI become more like humans. This is not a risk that personally we are going to face in spite of whatever, especially over these weeks, someone likes to say. The risk that we are going to face actually is to have us as human beings become more like artificial machines, because completely driven by mechanical systems and data that no one questions. So let me tell you how in my journey with my daily practice I found my own way to humanize AI in a business context. I come from a different background, actually. I come from the data journalism background, which means that I use data to uncover and reveal new stories. And I represent that stories with visuals, with interactive experiences to make data more accessible to people. And with data journalism, I always found the way to bridge the humanities, which is my first background. By training, I'm a classicist, in fact, and the data, the programming languages, the STEM, basically, which is the second part of my soul. And data journalism, it's always been a bridge to me to connect these different worlds that honestly today AI gives us the opportunity to have together again. I think that going beyond our own little bubble, driven by the curiosity to explore different worlds, gives us the ability to see patterns between these worlds. And this is key to innovation. And curiosity, oddly enough, is what brought me from a career in data journalism to data science, when a few years ago I joined IBM. I joined IBM as the only data journalist in a team of data scientists, actually figuring out how to apply my skills in journalism, storytelling, data visualization design wasn't easy. And, well, actually wasn't easy is an understatement, because the truth is that it was hard. It was extremely hard, because all my colleagues were data scientists, and they didn't know what data journalists are or what they do. And honestly, with them, the majority of the people still today. So it was very awkward to me at the beginning, understand how to help my team, the IBM Data Science and AI Elite team, because the mission of this team was to solve enterprises' problems by developing AI solutions, meaning machine learning models, optimization models. And so at the beginning, they took me like a kind of a database human tool, until when I was able to craft my own path and show them that data storytelling, together with a journalistic mindset, are crucial to explain the impact of AI both on people and organizations. I worked with data scientists, machine learning engineers, data engineers, and also many executives responsible for data, AI, and IT departments. And I realized that there is a massive need for data journalists today in the AI practice. And by that, I don't mean the ability of these experts to transform data into visual stories. That's not the most important skill. What we need these experts for is to illuminate AI by pushing back false narratives generated by biased algorithms. We need these experts to use data to back up hypotheses and challenge assumptions. They are the ones that will strike down any harm that might be caused by misbehaving algorithms that produce misleading and inaccurate data that can, again, harm people's life. We are changing our own perception of the world and the experience of the world through the services and the products where AI is infused. Products and services that organizations provide. And so these organizations are responsible to start building an army of what I call data-savvy humanists. These are people that are able to capture the human stories hidden in data and AI, so to make AI come closer to our own humanity. I believe that for this reason, the business is kind of a means that we can use to rebalance the relationship between human and machines for the better. And with this belief, I'm trying in a business context to humanize AI, meaning bringing a humanistic approach into the AI practices. In fact, there is a lot today about what is so-called human-centered AI, which is an emerging discipline started around 2017 that aims at building and extending user experience methods to create the services and products with AI that augment people's wisdom and performance. But I've always found the definition of human-centered AI pretty limited and very narrow. Usually it's mainly focused on the users, people, through the lens of users, taking into consideration humans just from the perspective of the action. While I believe that when we start designing an AI systems, we should look at humans holistically, also from the dimensions of the thinking and the feelings. So to expand on the vision of human-centered AI, I came back to my roots, the humanities, and I did research into the meaning, the original meaning of the word humanism, in an effort to create a framework for myself to refer to when I talk about humanizing AI, to give to this concept a definition. And the word humanism comes from the Latin word humanitas, which has a very broad meaning, but essentially it refers to the ability and the respect for the human being. A respect that comes from a sympathy for the human's condition, with the recognition that this condition of the human, of us, is fragile and weak, basically. And so, over the centuries, the concept of humanism has been codified in three main principles: the truth, justice, and beauty. And these principles represent the human and endless effort to really go beyond this fragile condition that belongs to us, to aspire to something greater, something immortal. And right at the heart of these three principles, I found my way to bring a humanistic approach into the AI practices. And so I weave the truth, justice, and beauty in what I do daily. So I create human-centered strategies for enterprises. I explain the complexity of algorithms through data visual stories. And I enable non-technical savvy people to access the complexity of models by giving them the languages necessarily to do that. But let's start from the truth. The truth in AI means having trustworthy models, models on which we can rely, models that are honest. But to do that, we always need to keep algorithms in check. In fact, I see too many times clients just relying on statistical metrics that describe partially the performance of an algorithm, but that usually do not tell anything about the trustworthiness, for example, of those algorithms. When we analyze models and their performance, we also have to take into account many other aspects, not just the accuracy or the precisions. Because our human decisions should really abide by much higher standards and purposes than statistical metrics. And too often we go into the trap to think that a metric like the accuracy, as I said, can tell us everything about a model, but it's not true. It's not the case. So to really make AI come closer to the truth, we need to go through a continuous iteration where we can review our models, because by doing that, our observations and findings improve. And as far as they improve, they become more accurate. And we can get the models in that way closer to the truth. But we can do that only by applying the scientific method to the models that we are building. And the lack of a formalized method to do that, so to approach models and algorithms from both a humanistic and a scientific perspective, prompted me a few years ago to start building a new framework that today is formalized to help companies develop an AI strategy, meaning that we help them to create a portfolio of responsible AI initiatives that align with their corporate strategy and that are prioritized by ROI horizons, so that they have a common set of priorities to address. By creating new exercises and tools that rely on data design and data storytelling, I innovated the mainstream practices of design thinking. And so I use these tools to sit down with clients and really give shape to their data so that they can visualize the status and the quality of their data. This helps in providing to a multidisciplinary team a common language to address data and AI problems, because these exercises enable everyone, not just the data scientists, but also the business stakeholders, to really gather a collective understanding of the status of their data. In this way, we create a vision for the company on how it will progress with AI. But the strategic framework doesn't help just on creating a common vision and making sure that the projects are mapped to key metrics, so to get business value out of them. It also helps with instilling into the strategic project, into the strategic process, an ethical thinking. So to really start aligning algorithms to our human values and civil norms. In fact, we are seeing a big push from governments and institutions that are creating guidelines and frameworks for regulating AI. And this is such an important topic that we start over these strategic sessions to address with these multidisciplinary teams. So to really infuse an ethical mindset regarding the AI projects that the company will eventually implement. In fact, even though not many companies realize it yet, by aligning their AI projects to their social responsibility efforts and values, they can set the boundaries for their idiosyncratic way to use and adopt AI. But this is a work that we have to do. We, as human beings, we need to align algorithms to our own concept of justice. And to borrow a quote by Amelie Bender, who is the director of the Computational Linguistic Program at the Washington University, algorithms are artifacts, not sentient entities. And as such, the metaphor of teaching algorithms values is completely misleading, because we are the ones that have to come up with techniques and methods to really embed our values and concept of justice into the algorithms that impact our life. And here is where beauty is key, because once we develop this vision for how we are going to use AI, we have to be able to appropriately communicate this vision. And the beauty is key to do that, because beauty makes data and AI more human approachable. It creates stories that stick with people and trigger their curiosity. And this is how I use data storytelling. I see beauty serving the needs of really opening up the complexity of models to a broader audience, so that everyone can understand algorithms and their results. And in fact, it shouldn't surprise that, again, a humanistic method, the human ability for storytelling is key to humanizing AI. Because when we translate an AI vision into a beautiful and tangible story, everyone is aligned towards a common goal, and so companies can easier progress by implementing AI projects. And I found data storytelling useful in many cases, but especially the most impact that it has is on people that are mostly business stakeholders, and that through data storytelling can finally see the financial impacts of machine learning models and how they impact their organizations. Because data storytelling informs business strategies and enable decision makers to see through algorithms. Because stories create a bridge between people and data, and so that's why AI comes closer to us. And this refers to another important topic, that is data and AI literacy. I've done a lot of efforts in IBM to really improve data and AI literacy in the organization. I created, for example, a data-driven newsletter to show my colleagues that we have plenty of ways to communicate data to tell new stories. I also play with natural language processing to really use the textual data of that newsletter to create and come up with new visual stories. I challenge the old-fashioned way to report internal data by creating interactive data experiences instead of boring charts and PowerPoint to make data more appealing. And I changed the way we create and report data in our sales and revenue dashboards by driving the design of the data from the stories that our executives in IBM wanted to see to fully grasp our business dynamics. And finally, after years of experimentations, I'm happy to say that I created a certified learning program in IBM, which aims at transforming the way that our experts communicate and read data, which is an essential skill today if we want to correctly and properly interpret the AI's outcome and also explain AI. And I think that data and AI literacy should be an effort that all companies should pursue in an attempt to create a new generation of leaders in AI, a generation of data-savvy humanists, as I was saying earlier, experts that can see opportunities in data and AI, that can challenge algorithms, and that can ask critical questions to data. We need these experts to create responsible AI systems that respect the human beings. And respect should be really our compass in a world driven by mathematical model where often we forget about the uniqueness of each individual. You know, models are great to help us understand better the reality by generalizing it through common patterns. But the truth is that when it comes to humans, humans are made of different nuances and their own peculiarities. And so we need to instill into the very rigid and binary intelligence of algorithms the multifaceted nature of humans. And we can do that through discernment. Discernment is what we need to create responsible AI systems that preserve our human dignity and free will. Thank you.
Round of applause, Tamara. So, I mean, that was really interesting, and I'm sure that a lot of people watching, and myself, that's very new, a lot of that to us. Do you guys have any questions for Mara? There will be a mic coming round if you want to stick your hand up. But in terms of that, in the fact that it is kind of new, a new field, and although it hasn't really existed before, but you kind of made your own way there. How did you do that? How did you even find out and become a data journalist?
That's a good question. Yes, I came to data journalism through linguistics and computational linguistics. I've always been in love with journalism, and then I find my path to go there. Eventually, I won a scholarship in Los Angeles for graduating in data journalism, where I took classes in computer science and in journalism department. So it was exactly, as I said, the bridge between these two different worlds. And then, of course, I worked for newsrooms, data-driven agencies until I joined IBM. But this is the path, more or less.
So is there like a more formal way of doing it now, or do people kind of find their own routes? If when people looking, at you and thinking, wow, that sounds amazing, how do I do that?
Yeah.
What would you advise?
Yeah, absolutely. I would advise to read and look for the graphics and data departments of the the biggest newsrooms, like the Washington Post, the New York Times, Bloomberg, Reuters. They have amazing data journalists and bring that approach into the practices of the organizations like I do. So it's really, I guess, a multidisciplinary approach where we see what works outside in terms of narratives and data, and we can bring that approach into the traditional organizations' practices to innovate and start catalyzing this change, basically, inside the companies.
Great, so there might be lots of ways to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. So you mentioned, you've obviously worked for, working for IBM now, you've worked for big clients in the past, like Rolls-Royce, Lufthansa, I believe. And you mentioned, sometimes you go into these groups and people didn't know what you were sort of doing there, or what you were expected to do. Is that intimidating?
It depends, I guess, from the personality. It could be. Personally, it wasn't for me. I guess I like the challenging aspect of that situation. And so it was a way for me to really experiment with new languages, new techniques, and taking advantage of the fact that, in fact, the clients didn't see this approach. They haven't never experienced it before. And so it was the opportunity to instill it for the first time in a new company, in a new organization, and let them and help them to better see through algorithms, so through stories and narratives and strategies.
I mean, you're obviously a really talented science communicator and STEM communicator. So I'm wondering, when you are dealing with so many sort of complex and new, unique sort of ideas, who do you go to if you're stuck, if you're sort of thinking, I don't know how to approach this one?
I don't go to people in the sense that I think I have many mentors. But since the field is so new, I don't have a point of reference when I'm stuck. So I guess that I just talk to people to get opinion and different visions, and then I come up with some ideas to overcome the obstacle, I guess, get unstuck. And but I don't think there are yet a point of references for this profession and the work that I'm trying to do.
Right. So you're finding your way still.
I'm trying to find, yes.
Well, thank you so much. That was a really, really interesting talk. Please give a big hand to Mara again.